if we wanted to use normalize.css in our project, we could just change the location of normalize.css to point to the Bower Components normalize.css folder inside of our link tag. If we go back to our editor, we would change it right here. So it would look like Bower Components /normalize.css/normalize.css. However, we're missing out on one huge benefit of using a package manager, which is being more specific about the versions that we're using. So what we did on the command line was we ran the command bower install normalize.css. And what this will do is just install the latest version of it. In the future, if we wanted to install a more recent normalize.css, we could just run this command again, like so. But the problem is that sometimes these packages are going to have huge changes from one version to another. And if we download those big changes, then we might end up breaking some of our existing code. Sometimes with front-end development, it's not going to be entirely clear what the total effect will be in those changes in the upgrade. Now you may have noticed that with the version, there's 3 numbers, 3.0.3. This is called semantic versioning, or semver, and we have a whole video about it on Build a Module if you want to learn more. But the basic idea is that the first number is the major version, the second number is the minor version, and the third number is the patch version. Now, if we imagine upgrading normalize.css later, the reason we'd want to do that is because perhaps there were some problems with the version that we're using that get fixed in a later version. Or perhaps the normalize addresses issues that didn't exist at the time that the version that we're using was created. So for example, new browsers create new problems when it comes to CSS. So you might wonder, is it possible to download just updated versions that fix things that weren't fixed in previous versions, and avoid downloading any versions of normalize.css that rethink the way it approaches the problem of normalizing CSS? Because those are the ones that are going to be problematic to us. Well, there is, and it boils down to what these 3 numbers mean. So this last number, this last 3, indicates the patch version. Now each version upgrade of a patch, so maybe from 3.0.3 to 3.0.4, just fixes problems in this version of the library. It shouldn't add any new features, and it shouldn't change the API at all. Now, APIs in CSS are a little different than APIs in JavaScript or PHP or any programming language. But the idea is that the API is the part of the library that we depend on not changing. So any patch updates will simply fix things without changing the way we have to use the library. The second number, the minor version number, might introduce some new features, but it won't change the API. So we should still be able to use normalize.css in the way that we've used it before, without having to change the way that we think about it, but we'll get some additional features. Now, if we were being very careful with our versions, we would say we only want to update patch versions. That is, we only want to upgrade our normalize.css if there's an updated patch, but we don't want to update it if it's a new minor version or a new major version. If we want to be a little less cautious at the benefit of being able to use new features, then we could say that we want to upgrade to the latest minor version of the project, but keep the major version the same. In this case, with normalize.css, I think it makes the most sense to take this approach, where we update to the latest minor version, but we keep the major version the same.